Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Now back to Playboy Fantasy Football.
By Ron Woodson, and Woodson is into Bronco territory, and Ron Woodson going to be chased down by Smith, not until he scores. Touchdown Raiders.
Here is an example of a big player making a big-time play in a big game.
Welcome back to Playboy Fantasy Football. I am so excited. Chris, Nikki, are you excited about our...
I am super stoked.
Yeah, our next guest. Good friend of mine, Hall of Famer, 17 years in the NFL analyst, coach. He's done it all. My good friend, I call him Rod Woodson. Rod, are you there?
I am here.
Thank you for joining us, Rod. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm just walking the streets of Hawaii aimlessly, looking for something to eat.
I'm so jealous. You're in Hawaii?
Yeah, I want to go.
Yeah, I have to do the Boise State University of Hawaii game.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, cool.
Well, we're in rainy California.
It's raining?
Yes. It's actually been raining.
LA sucks when it rains.
This town needs a bath.
LA needs a rain, though.
Yeah.
Did you like our intro for you, Rod?
I did. I like that.
Yeah, see, we have to...
Made me sound better than what I am.
Oh, come on.
Come on now.
There's video that goes with that clip. We know better.
One of the best DBs of all time. We're talking to Rod Woodson. Now, Rod, let's get right into talking football. Ron Bartell, he's going to be coming back to the Raiders. How will that help the 21st rated Raiders secondary?
Well, hopefully it helps them because they're not playing good football right now. Unfortunate thing that, Ron had a history of injuries. He got hurt earlier this year. They moved Michael Huff to corner, and Mike has played halfway decent. He's come around. He's learning to play the position. He had a pretty rough week last week versus Tampa Bay. So hopefully, with Bartell coming back, you can move Michael back to his regular position at safety, and you can get your best players on the field.
Yeah, that's a good point because he's playing out of position. That means quite a bit, not only for wide receivers that we would start against them, but even the quarterbacks as well, too. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. Which reminds me, Rod, thanks again for being on the show. This is such a thrill for us. I mean, you're totally legitimizing us here. So we're a fantasy show, and we want to know when it comes to secondaries. I like looking at, banged up secondaries or underperforming secondaries so I can start my fantasy players against them. Who are some of the secondaries that I should be targeting in the upcoming weeks because they're just underperforming or maybe in kind of an injury situation?
Well, you look at all the secondaries that, if you go on info.com or any of the fantasy lists, you can see some of them that perform poorly, and the Raiders are one of them. This is one of those teams that have been banged up. They don't get a lot of big plays. I think they only have 4 interceptions on the year. They don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, so it's just some of those teams that, have issues of stopping the pass. You look at Jacksonville, it's one of the same teams where... Yeah,
we're seeing that tonight.
Who got some players who can't make plays on the ball. Those are the type of secondaries you want to start your receivers and face those type of guys.
What's going on in New Orleans? I mean, this is the same personnel as last year, right? I don't remember them being so porous against the pass, though. They're the most, people are just gashing them in fantasy football perspective. Like Jabari Greer, Corey Wright, Patrick Robinson. What's happening back there?
Well, it is the same group, but you got to remember they're learning a new system. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, is new, so his philosophy is different than Greg Williams. The system is different than Greg Williams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes it takes them a little time for adjustment. They got some good players. If you look at the game, they're making a lot of mental errors. In communication, you see receivers just running wide open, and that's normally because you just have somewhere along the line the communication gap between either the corner and the safety or the safety and the linebackers. Hopefully, you would think by now, though, midway point, that they're getting used to this new defense, and you won't see those type of mistakes down the end.
And how about something like in Miami with the Dolphins? Do you think that people can pass on them, or at least the stats look like you can pass on them because their run defense has been so surprisingly strong? Does that kind of thing really exist?
Well, I mean, also with that, but they lost 2 guys who are really good players. Jeremiah Bell went up with the Jets, and Vontae Davis got traded away. So you got some new people there, but they're playing good football. I mean,
Sean Smith is doing well, yeah.
he's a good, big physical corner. He's not a great. He's not. He's not. He's a big guy. I can't say he's a great corner, but he makes plays. He needs to be more consistent. But that's probably their best overall player. So I mean, they have some playmakers over there. The defense is playing well. So I don't know if I would choose that defense to start my receiving core against.
What about Washington? They've been sort of a homecoming game for fantasy wide receivers, at least. But there's some names back there that people have heard. I mean, I expected more from guys like Josh Wilson and Ced Griffin and even D'Angelo.
Yeah, they're feast or famine. It's like they're going to have a good game or they're going to have a terrible game. And those guys that you mentioned, D'Angelo and Wilson and those guys, they're good players, they're solid players. But the defense as a whole is not playing real good. You got to remember, Arakpo, he's out.
That's right. A lot of linemen gone.
He's a young guy, so he's really still trying to learn how to play in this league. They have some players up front, but they just don't have enough to get the pressure on the quarterback so the secondary can make plays on the football.
We're speaking with Rod Woodson, Hall of Famer. Now, Rod, what rookie corners or DBs have made an impression on you this season?
You look at them, and I said Sean Smith. Darrelle Revis is by far the best corner in the league. Unfortunately, he's hurt. But it's Revis, and then it's everybody else. Nobody's even close to Revis, in my opinion. But, Cromartie's played well. Jonathan Jones has played well. Champ Bailey, the old school guy, he's played well. But there's three corners that I really, really like. I think they're going to be good players. Patrick Peterson.
Oh, yeah.
Guard.
Yeah, he's a young guy,
big,
too.
Physical guy. He's a great athlete. He's going to learn. I think as the years progress, his second year, he's going to keep learning how to play, and he's going to keep getting better. After that, you got Claiborne for the Dallas Cowboys. This guy's a big physical specimen.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And, he's learning. You're going to have your lumps when you're coming through when you're young in this league. You're going to get your lumps, but I think in a couple of years he's going to be a really good player. And the last one to me, I think, which nobody even talks about because he's a second-round pick for the Rams, is Janoris Jenkins.
Jenkins, yeah.
He's a good player. When you watch the film, he's a splash guy. You see flashes of really greatness. The kid had I think he went to I think he got drafted out of North Alabama. He had some issues in college. He was a transfer in college. That's why he was a second-round pick. But
yeah, that was the knock.
This kid is not Claiborne. He's not Patrick Peterson because he's not that big. But he can make plays on the football. He's not scared to challenge the receivers in the league.
Yeah, and like you said before, these guys need a little time to gel for their athletic ability to catch up with the system that they're playing in. And once those two things converge, then they're really becoming an asset for their team. Do you know? I'm a Packer fan, Rod. Just forgive me for that for a second, but we lost Charles Woodson for the season, who's just a complete stud. Give a chance for some young guys to get there. Have you heard of this kid Casey Hayward?
No, Casey Hayward.
Yeah, he's a rookie out of there. He's was leading the NFL in interceptions there for a while with 4 of those. And I was just curious if you had a perspective on him. He's fresh off the scene ever since Charles Woodson went down. So I was just curious what you thought about that.
Yes. I know you're talking about the kid up in Green Bay.
That's right. That's what, yeah. I had to fit my Packers in there. Sorry.
I know a bunch about him because I didn't follow him coming out. I didn't do a draft grade coming out on the kid. But I know Darren Perry, who's a DB coach up there in Green Bay. He likes him.
Oh, good.
He thinks that sometimes when you get interceptions, you're in the right place at the right time.
Or you're gambling.
But when you get 4 in the first half of the year, you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's encouraging. And there one kind of interesting thing is that Stanford Rouch just recently let go. Where do you think a landing spot might be for him?
Well, it's going to be tough. He had some issues last year with the Raiders. I was there coaching at the Raiders. And,
I know. You must have firsthand perspective on that.
Right. Then he goes to Kansas City, and, they get rid of him. But, Kansas City has more issues than Stanford Rouch. It seems like he was made the scapegoat in this one. I don't think you let a guy go that you gave that much money to when he's played halfway decent. He hasn't played terrible, but he hasn't played great. I don't know this year if he'll get picked up by anybody.
Yeah,
not unless a team just gets devastated by corner play and they need to pick up a veteran guy.
Yeah, and but as a guy who coached him, do you think that he can still be an asset for a team if he can kind of work within the system? I'll take that as a yes.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying.
I was like, it's Hawaii delay time.
Yeah, since you had some experience working with them with the Raiders, is this a guy that can bounce back and still be an asset to his team?
I think he can. It's just, I'm pretty sure, it was a surprise to him that he got cut because he started last week. He was hurt last week, but he started his other games. He had 2 interceptions this year. I know he's given up a couple touchdowns. So I think he was surprised about the cut. But, as a player, you got to take that stuff with a grain of salt. And if somebody else gives you an opportunity, you got to go out there and play your best football.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we see it all the time. But us lay people, we only get this exposure through watching like Hard Knocks or something. But it certainly seems like everyone's surprised when they get cut. But I'm sure sometimes you can see the writing on the wall as well. But hopefully he can be a good asset.
Yeah, but not normally mid-season.
Ah, interesting point.
Not with a guy that was starting. Normally a guy that's, if a guy's a starter and he gets cut mid-season because he did something terribly wrong, probably outside of football.
That's the part, right?
You don't see a guy who was hurt, who didn't play the following week or that week, then he gets released that Monday. That normally doesn't happen. And
coaches and assistant coaches, it just sounds like a headache. They just don't want to deal with that stuff, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, it's hard to speak of, why they did it in Kansas City. Romeo's a good coach. Hopefully him and the D coordinator and defensive coaches got together, and I guess they had their reasons.
What about over in, Seahawks have a really tough defense this year. A lot of people predicted that. They're really coming together. Now, Walter Thurman is going to be back from IR. How does it take guys a while to kind of get back into the system? And we just talked about coming back in mid-season, but can Thurman still come in, make an impact, and be able to help that defense get even tougher?
Yeah, they have a good defense. They're physical. They play good football. They're a lot better than I thought they were going to be. And you want your playmakers, but when you come off, you're on that IR. You come off. You haven't played football. You haven't played game speed. Yeah, you're practicing, but you can't simulate game speed in practice. So it's going to be some rust there. But they got some players there. You look at Sherman and Browner, the corners, and Earl Thomas, and the other safety and Chancellor. Those guys are some players. I mean, they got some players across the board.
They got some big boys back there too. I mean, they're kind of a good combination of quick and large too. So laying the pipe.
Now, Rod, we have one more question for you before we let you go back to the beautiful sunny Hawaii. Now, let's talk about the Bears' defense. Are you impressed? I mean, you still hold the league record for 12 interceptions returned for touchdowns. Are you impressed with the Bears' defense and how the 7-pick-6 season?
Oh, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that's normally a season. And they got that already at the halfway point. And, Jennings, Tim Jennings, a corner, he has 2 of those. I think Briggs has a couple. Urlacher has one.
Yep.
These guys are playing good football. They got a good pass rush. They do stay in that Tampa 2 more so than not. But with that being said, they don't give you a lot of big plays, and they make up a lot of big plays. And that's one of the main reasons they're 7-1. This is a good football team. The offense has some issues at times, but you can win a championship with a defense like that.
And help me understand, is that a hybrid Tampa 2? I didn't think I thought it was kind of a bad word to go with the Tampa 2 these days because of all that underneath stuff. But are they running a true Tampa 2 or what is that?
Well, I mean, most Tampa 2 is really just a underlying philosophy that your middle linebacker is going to run the middle of the field. It's not going to be every single down. But when you see Lance Briggs deep in the middle of the field, it's normally going to be a Tampa 2. That's normally where your Mike linebacker is not going to be.
Right, try to catch him in coverage, right?
Right. And it's really it's a 2-shell. It's a 4-man front, 7-man in coverage, and it's harder to find those windows to throw in. And I think that's one of the main reasons they're playing good football right now.
So do you think they're going to break the 1961 Chargers record of 9?
Oh, they definitely can. They got 7, heck.
Yeah, I think
they got
maybe
7.
this week.
They played 8 games. So, I mean, it seems like they close their eyes, the ball hits them, and they run in for a touchdown. So, they can break that. They can probably shatter it, really.
Yeah,
they have half the year left, and the team is playing good football. And the way they're playing right now, they're always playing with the lead, so the offenses have to throw against them.
Yeah, and they bring the pressure that way, too. Yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Rod, we really appreciate it. You really made our day coming on the show. And of course, you're in Hawaii, so we've got to be keeping you from something cool. But we really, really appreciate you coming on the show and helping us. This perspective was fantastic. We don't get this kind of analysis from a fantasy perspective. So thank you very much.
And make sure to watch Rod. And Rod, you're doing college football now, right? So we make sure to watch you on NBC, correct?
Yeah, NBC. I do college football, and then I work for Dow Global, and I do some of the pro games.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. And tomorrow I'm going to go hit the beach and get me some sun so I can get some color.
Yeah, you need some color, Rod. You're looking a little pale lately. Last time I saw you. All right. Thanks, Rod. Have a good night.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Wow, that was fantastic. Yeah, we're blessed by having a Hall of Famer on the show here, and we're going to have a ton more for you guys. We'll get to some of your calls after the break. Give us a buzz, 888XM Fantasy, or on Twitter at SiriusXM Fantasy, and we'll be back with more Playboy Fantasy Football after this.
It's the ultimate male fantasy. Playboy Fantasy Football on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Sirius 210 XM 87.